Starting with Bitcoin, we were usually like to check where we were last week. So yeah, we were here last week around low 90s and drew this green box here as sort of a demand zone. This is where we had a bid, and this is sort of just like we talked about what happens if we just run these lows and don't get follow through. So came right into this green box. If you watched last week and you put this on your chart, again, we talk about a lot how like putting alarms and drawing stuff in advance, like it's super beneficial to me at least, because like then when this is happening, instead of like panicking, you're like, oh, this is right inside my green box, or like human emotion naturally, like this doesn't look so hot here, it looks wrecked. Everything looks always so obvious, like, oh, it's an obvious hindsight bottom. Like every bottom's obvious in hindsight. This didn't look obvious, not to me at least. Like even after this little, this just looks like chop. But if you have your levels drawn out, you kind of know, okay, I'm not gonna, at least bare minimum, I'm not gonna panic sell in this area, and if anything, I should be looking for long. So not gonna get every level right every time, but this looks pretty damn good. Still just a range. We talked about how it was just a range, and still kind of is. Top line's a little harder to draw. Bottom line's kind of obvious down here. And so you had your deviation below the low. And you could even draw the top line a little tighter and say that these are deviations here. It's whatever. If you want to call these deviations, doesn't really matter. But yeah, it's a range. It's choppy. Bid held for now. We had some FUD about the Feds selling 6.5 billion. Honestly, I have no idea if they sold or if that was all bullshit. I guess we won't know for another week. So I was talking to Forrest during that FUD, and that FUD was pretty serious. Like 6.5 bill. I don't know if they sold or didn't sell or not going to sell. Who the fuck knows? But at the time, if they were going to sell, 6.5 bill market sell between now and Trump coming in here at the low 90s, like it made sense to think like at least we're going to go into the 80s, maybe even high 70s. But I was talking to Forrest at the time. We were both, trying to chop up what it meant. And at the end of the day, like, we're both going back and forth. No, maybe they sold 20%. Maybe they sold 100. Maybe they're not going to sell. It's like, at the end of the day, I think we both kind of came to the conclusion of just trade the chart. Charts at support, charts at the range low. Yeah, this FUD sucks, but like I think we both opened hedges and closed them like an hour later, just kind of realizing like, don't trade the news, trade the chart. If you know how to read a chart, like use that skill. Don't rely on what everybody else is relying on, which is like hearing news probably days after insiders and then reacting days late versus just reading the chart. So all that to say, Bitcoin looks pretty good. Same range as we were in last week. Only I would even argue maybe a little more bullish because we deviated and we had the FUD and we still basically couldn't break 90K for more than a wick.